Hello, BookTube. I have another mail haul for you. More mail came today. Those of you who are new to the channel, I noticed there are a few people who are new. The reason that explains all this is not that I work in publishing. A couple of you have emailed me and asked me that. Do I work in publishing? It's that I'm a professional book critic. I'm a book reviewer, and I have been for a long time. So I'm on a lot of publishers' lists for new books. That's why I get buried in them every day. And I was, of course, getting ready to make a book haul when suddenly I wondered, are these videos on autopilot? I wondered if I was being just completely self-indulgent. I love opening my mail with you and going through it together. Absolutely love it. Feels fantastic to have company doing that and feedback. And the few publicists who know that BookTube exists uh, very much love the fact that their upcoming books are being showcased by a fairly knowledgeable guide to hundreds and hundreds of avid readers. That's okay with them. and But what about the rest of you? It occurred to me finally today to wonder about the rest of you. Are you as the BroTube channels would say, are you getting value out of these mail hauls? I would like to think that you are, because you're seeing new releases before they hit your stores and having time to think about whether or not you want to pre-order it, whether or not you want to get it when it comes out. You'll know something about it when it comes out. But I'm not sure of that. So I mean, we'll do this mail. Of course, it ends in a bunch of cardboard packages and also a tiny little box, a box that's hardly worth the effort. But in addition to that, I would love to hear from you on the subject of these mail hauls, just in general. Are they a welcome part of your YouTube feed? Are you happy with them the way they are? I know that I've heard from quite a few people that they would really like it if I would get back, if I would come around and actually tell you what I think about the books that we got. A lot of them I've never seen before. And that's something I can certainly work on in 2020. But I'm talking about the mail hauls themselves, just these, what we're about to do. Do you enjoy this? Do you want to keep doing it, or should I parcel them out, maybe a few a week? But anyway, let's look at these. This has been a nice full day for new books. So let's see what this first one is. Oh, okay. All right. I think this is a double. I think we've seen this already on this channel. This is a World War II book. This is Dead Reckoning, the story of how Johnny Mitchell and his fighter pilots took on Admiral Yamamoto and avenged Pearl Harbor, by Dick Lair. Public enemy number one of the American Navy is dead, announced Chet Huntley on CBS News Radio in April 1943. That enemy, Japanese Admiral Yamamoto, had been the man who devised the attack on Pearl Harbor 16 months before, which killed more than 2,400 U.S. servicemen and civilians, left another 1,178 wounded, and propelled America into the war. The mission to kill the larger-than-life naval genius, called Operation Vengeance, was carried out by a group of highly trained American warriors, and in this book, New York Times bestselling author Dick Lair recreates the historical event that proved a turning point in World War II and captured the public imagination much as the hunt for bin Laden would decades later. So you're going to have to decide at some point in this book where you stand on that subject, because they are not the same. The pub sheet has drawn an explicit comparison between Osama bin Laden's attack on 9/11 and Yamamoto planning Pearl Harbor, and those are not the same. Right? Bin Laden was a terrorist actor. He did not have state. He was not a state-sponsored actor. It was not an act of war. It was an act of terrorism. Yamamoto planned the attack on Pearl Harbor. Pearl Harbor was a big, fat, vulnerable, sitting duck of a target. And if it hadn't been Yamamoto, naval genius or not, who planned that attack, it would have been someone else. It was equally likely, and yet the American military sought out Yamamoto and assassinated him. They shot down his plane. So you have to decide when you get into a book like this what you think of that, where you draw the line. Are we talking about a crime here, or a victory, or both? Oh, really fascinating. Don't think I've read a book on this in quite some time, and you know what I'd like, of course. You're going to be able to see it coming. I would like a great, big English-language biography of Admiral Yamamoto. Very much like that. There hasn't been one in quite some time. In fact, has there ever been one in English? Anyway, so this comes out in mid-May. It's a World War II book, that's for sure. Okay, so we're off to a fine start. I will certainly be reviewing this. Don't know exactly where, but certainly somewhere. Let's see here. I never miss a big World War II book if I can help it. It's just a subject that endlessly fascinates me. Ew. Ew, my hands touched an invoice. Let's see if there's a pub sheet in here. Oh, yes, there is. Okay, good. Oh, fantastic. Oh, all right. Wonderful. Okay, this comes out in early April. This will be a known quantity to a lot of you. This is the next Daniel Pitt novel. This is One Fatal Flaw by Anne Perry. These are just institutions. They are incredibly good. This is... I wonder if it's going to tell me. I'm trying to remember how many of these. These are Victorian murder mysteries. I'm trying to remember how many there have been in this series. The Monk novels had like 20-something, 30-something. Okay, and then the Charlotte and Thomas Pitt. Okay, the Daniel Pitt. This author is extremely prolific. Daniel Pitt has had 3 novels so far. This is the 3rd one. And before that, Charlotte and Thomas Pitt had 30, upwards of 30. So this author is going on 100 books. Let's see here. When a desperate woman comes to Daniel Pitt seeking a lawyer for her boyfriend, Rob Adwell, Daniel is convinced that the young man's innocence. Adwell had been accused of murder and of setting fire to conceal the body, but Daniel is sure that science can absolve him. And Miriam Croft is the best scientist he knows. Miriam connects Daniel with her former teacher, Sir Barnabas Saltram, an expert in arson, and together they reveal Adwell's innocence by proving that an accidental fire caused the victim's death. But it's not long before Adwell is killed in the same fiery fashion. If these deaths are in fact murders, what essential clue could Daniel and Miriam have missed? I've been reading a lot of murder mysteries lately. More than is good for me, I'm sure. And in light of all of those murder mysteries that I have read recently, when the question comes up, what essential clue could Daniel and Miriam have missed? Perhaps consulting with former teacher Sir Barnabas Saltram might be a good idea. Just a thought. All right, great, fantastic. So a new Pitt novel. Doesn't matter to me if it's Thomas Pitt or Daniel Pitt. Fantastic. Okay, let's move on here. This next one. Okay. Young adult. YA. Let's see what we have here. This is by Anna Jarzab, and it is Breath Like Water. Look at that lovely cover. Greatness is never without sacrifices, grit, and hard work. In this book, a teenage girl with Olympic dreams refuses to take no for an answer, even in the face of injury and daunting odds stacked against her. Jarzab, the author of Red Dirt, brings to life strong but fragile characters facing real physical and mental obstacles and aspiring to dream big, all while balancing the pressure of school, extracurricular activities, navigating young love, and in between, just trying to find space to breathe. A swimming novel. Okay, great. Fantastic. So this comes out in paperback, it looks like, in late May. Breath Like Water. Susanna Ramos has always loved the water. She was a world champion early in her swimming career, but an inexplicable slowdown has put her dreams in jeopardy. Susanna's climb back to the top is complicated when her friendship with fellow swimmer Harry blossoms into love while other forces pull them apart. As she struggles to balance her needs with those of the people she cares about, Susanna will learn the cost and the beauty of trying to achieve something extraordinary. A champion swimmer named Ramos? How believable is that? All right, great. Fantastic. Some promising YA. Let's see here. Let's see what this next one is. Finished copy of something. Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. All right, great. We are cooking with gas here. This comes out in February. Yes, late February. This is by Jill Wine-Banks, and this is The Watergate Girl. Subtitle is My Fight for Truth and Justice Against a Criminal President. And there is Jill Wine-Banks as a young woman. Is part of the Watergate prosecution team. You will know the name Jill Wine-Banks in 2020 because she is a very popular cable news talking head guest about a worst criminal president than President Nixon. She has been talking about Donald Trump and the Mueller report and impeachment for 4 years now. And she's really good, very passionate, very clear-eyed talking head on those shows. And here is her own book. I wonder if there's a picture of her. You might recognize her. Yeah, there she is with one of her famous pins. She has an endless array of pins that she's perfectly willing to discourse on. Let's see here. It was a time much like today when Americans feared for the future of their democracy and women stood up for equal treatment. At the crossroads of the Watergate scandal and the women's movement was a young lawyer named Jill Wine-Volner, as she was known then, now Jill Wine-Banks. Barely 30 years old and the only woman on the team that prosecuted the highest-ranking White House officials. Called the mini-skirted lawyer by the press, at the time women were not permitted to wear pants in the courtroom, she fought and received respect of her male counterparts and prevailed. In this book opens a window on this troubled time in American history. It is impossible to read about the crimes of Richard Nixon and the people around him without drawing parallels with today's headlines. And yet, that is exactly what I am going to try to do when I review this book. Exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to talk only about Watergate when I review this. The book is also a story of a young woman who sought to make her professional mark while trapped in a failing marriage, buffeted by sexist preconceptions, and harboring secrets of her own. Her house was burgled, her phones were tapped, and even her office garbage was rifled through. Fantastic. This is on my February docket for the Christian Science Monitor, so very glad to have a finished copy. Very nice. Okay, now we move on to cardboard on our way towards the tiny little box. And we will give the tiny little box a golf clap because it's probably feeling a bit of a complex for being so small. Because we've had big boxes in the last few days. So what do we have here? Oh my. Oh goodness. Okay. All right, this is a big deal. Wow, this is going to get reviewed everywhere. Okay, this comes out in late May. This is the new novel by J.M. Coetzee. This is The Death of Jesus, or Jesus. The Nobel Prize winner and literary legend J.M. Coetzee has been lauded as one of the last great novelists. That was by The Nation, like they would know. And the greatest living novelist in English. That was New York Times Book Review on a lazy day, I presume. Coetzee's sentences are coiled springs, and the energy they release would take other writers' pages to summons. That's what the New Yorker said, and it is patently untrue. Just patently untrue. This is very often a very lazy author, especially now in the twilight of his career. After the childhood of Jesus and the school days of Jesus, Coetzee completes his Haunting Jesus trilogy with the death of Jesus. In the childhood of Jesus, Simone found a boy, David, and they began life in a new land, together with a woman called Inez. In the school days of Jesus, the small family searched for a home in which David could thrive. In the death of Jesus, David has grown to be a tall 10-year-old who's a natural at soccer. David still asks many questions, challenging his parents and any authority figure in his life. In dancing class at the Academy of Music, he dances as he chooses. He refuses to do math and will not read any book except Don Quixote. After watching David and his friends kick around a soccer ball, Julio Fabricante, the director of a nearby orphanage, invites David and his friends to form a proper soccer team and compete against the orphanage team. David ultimately leaves Simone and Inez and lives at the orphanage, but before long he is hospitalized with a mysterious inflammatory ailment from which he believes he's dying. I have not known what to make of these books. I'm grateful to have the third one. This comes out in late May, and I'm grateful to have it. Gives me a chance to just re-enter this world. I haven't known what to make of them, of the first two. They've seemed to me just criminally lazy, just criminally so, self-evidently, self-consciously lazy. Like there's only the barest, wimpy little thread of an idea, and the whole thing is just being bellows pumped for all that it's worth. A trilogy? And critics have liked these books, not ecstatically, but they have liked them. I myself can't help but think that this was one book that might have been great, that has been stretched, racked into three. But I'm glad I have the third one because I have time now to put it on the shelf and sink into it, because I may have been misjudging it. I don't know. let's see this next one is one of these adhesive cardboard packages that you have to tear it apart because all the pieces are sticky. So if you don't, they're going to get everywhere and just stick together. Okay, all right. We started off with Ann Perry. We're going just strong. It's almost like the publishing world knows that I'm reading, that I'm nose down in murder mysteries. Okay, great, fantastic. This is a February release, late February. I have not read it yet, but I will read it today. I will make up for that. And this is the new Maggie Hope mystery. This is The King's Justice. There's an explosion in the background, and there's our heroine in the foreground. This is the 9th book in the series, a series I cannot recommend strongly enough to you. I cannot recommend these strongly enough. I know we've had Ann Perry, and I do recommend any Pitt novel that you get your hands on, but Maggie Hope, I recommend as well, every bit as strongly, and also Maisie Dobbs. Don't miss these series. Let's see here. This book finds our heroine on edge. Maggie has returned to London after being imprisoned on a remote island for knowing confidential information, but she is traumatized by her experience. As she takes a break from spying, she starts to behave more and more recklessly. She drinks too much, speeds through the streets on her motorcycle, and joins a squad tasked with defusing unexploded bombs left in London after the Blitz. When conscientious objectors to the war start disappearing, Maggie is determined to stay out of it. But as human bones start washing up on the shores of the Thames inside of suitcases, it becomes clear that a serial killer is afoot, and Maggie must put aside her hesitations and get to work. And it'll be just the thing for her, I'm sure. Fantastic. Okay, and of course this has, the sheet here has just an endless array of blurbs. Just an endless array. Look at all these names. Good Lord. Tasha Alexander, the Amelia Gray novels, another series you shouldn't miss. Deanna Rayburn, Kate Quinn, Beatrice Williams, Ann Perry is blurbed here. Fantastic. All right, okay. Well, I have put off the advanced copy of this long enough, so I will dig into this and probably the Ann Perry. All right, fantastic. So, as usual, the mail is also creating TBR. Oh, God. It's another one of these adhesive envelopes, and once again, you not only have to tear it apart, but it has also destroyed something that was inside it, because it won't shift when you try to open it. It just sticks to what's inside it. So I didn't destroy the book, but I sure as heck destroyed the advance sheet here. God, just torn to shreds. Okay, well, there's not much of this left. This comes out in late February. At least I saved that. I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to read. This is a romance novel. This is Eternity Springs, The McBrides of Texas. So this is two things. Contemporary romances often are location-based. So Eternity Springs, something like that, where you have a bay or a harbor or a town, and the novels keep going back to the stories of the people in that town. And it's also family-based. The McBrides of Texas, that you see this many times in contemporary romances, where the story goes back and back to a family, a long extended family. And this is one of those. This is by Emily March, and it's just called Tucker. And you have some guy and two dogs, a little dog and a bigger dog. And you have this, which was stuck to the inside of the envelope. Let's see here. This is the second book in the Eternity Springs McBrides of Texas trilogy. So what was the first one? I bet I got it. Jackson was the first one. Let's see here. Two business owners come head to head in a feud with grit in this passionate story. This tale shows that even when life changes from the stress of a military career to working next to a wedding planner, love always finds a way to begin, even if it were never thought possible. Meet Gillian Thacker. Her business, Bliss Bridal Salon. Her passion, weddings. Her own wedding, it's complicated. Life isn't turning out like she planned. The last thing she wants is for a real-life hero to ride to her rescue, but an unexpected event puts her entire future in Redemption, Texas at risk. The name of the town is Redemption. Oh my. Oh my. So what's a broken-hearted bridal expert to do? Maybe a new set of survival skills is exactly what she needs. Okay, this comes out in late February. This is now on my list as well. I'll put what remains of the pub sheet in here. So the Maggie Hope and this romance are going to, that and the Watergate Girl are going to get read right away. I notice my light is fading here. I don't want that to happen. We'll just finish this up, that's all. So let's see here. Okay, this is a finished copy of A.K. Larkwood's The Unspoken Name, which has a horn on the cover. Let's see here. Okay, the name of the main character is Sorwe. Sorwe? Sorwe is the hero epic fantasy has been waiting for. What if you knew how and when you will die? Sorwe does. She will climb the mountain, enter the shrine of the unknown, of the unspoken, and become the child sacrifice of a dark, nameless god. But when the day comes, a powerful mage offers her a new fate: leave and live. Sorwe joins the wizard as his thief, spy, and assassin, and helps him topple an empire and reclaim his seat of power. Sorwe creates a new destiny for herself, but doing so reshapes the destiny of multiple worlds. And when she rescues a powerful sorceress, she finds out that gods remember. And if you live long enough, all debts come due. Oh my. Find out why everyone is obsessed with this rich, thoughtful, and unapologetically queer fantasy debut. Why would it be apologetically queer? You can build a career on that. So, who is A.K. Larkwood? This is her first book. Big deal. This is a Tor hardcover with you can't really see in the fading light, but it's a very attractive cover. Good for her. She studied English at St. John's College in Cambridge and now lives in Oxford with her wife and a cat. And The Unspoken Name is her debut. Fantastic. Good for her. Okay, so this comes out in any day. This comes out in, the date on it is 11 February. Great. All right, fantastic. Big epic fantasy. I got to admit, the drift of my reading these days is towards mysteries, not epic fantasies, but this book could change that. The year is still very young. And then we have the box. Tiny little thing. Wafer thin. So we'll finish with this thing. Can't imagine what it is. Let's see. Oh God, there's another invoice. Why are people sending me invoices? Let's see. Oh, great. Okay. All right. I think this is a paperback release. I think this is a paperback original. Yes, it is. Although it does come, it's a $28 paperback that comes out in at the end of February. The last date of February is the date on it. It's from New York University Press, and if you really want, there is a hardcover for $90 that you could order. It has an ISBN of its own. And this is by Christopher Bader, Joseph Baker, E. Edward Day, and Ann Gordon, and it's called Fear Itself: The Causes and Consequences of Fear in America. I think we already saw this. And this is what it's going to be. It's going to be a $30 trade paperback. From moral panics about immigration and gun control to anxiety about terrorism and natural disasters, Americans live in a culture of fear. While fear is typically discussed in emotional and poetic terms as the opposite of courage or as an obstacle to be overcome, it nevertheless has a very real consequences in everyday life. Persistent fear negatively affects individuals' decision-making ability and causes anxiety, depression, and poor physical health. Further, fear harms communities and society by corroding social trust and civic engagement. Yet politicians often effectively leverage fears to garner votes, and companies routinely market unnecessary products that promise protection from imagined or exaggerated harms. Drawing on 5 years of data from the Chapman Survey of American Fears, didn't know there was such a thing, which canvasses a random national sample of adults about a broad range of fears, this book offers new insights into what people are afraid of and how fear affects their lives. Okay. The authors draw on participant observation from doomsday preppers, conspiracy theorists, and provide fascinating narratives about the subcultures of fear. Not a big book. Sounds fascinating to me. I need to look at the Chapman Survey of American Fears. I didn't know such a thing existed. I can't help but think that none of the things alluded to in that pub sheet will be high on the list. Don't most Americans fear health problems? Because most Americans don't have health insurance? Or have health insurance that is effectively worthless because they can't afford anything? With it, it barely goes anywhere. The insurance companies in America are completely out of control. They are completely unregulated. So Americans, except for the 1% who is extremely wealthy, most Americans can't afford any kind of health problem. I would imagine that would be number one on the list of fears. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's these external things like terrorism or guns or immigrants or whatnot. I guess this book will teach me. It's a February release, and I think this is its final form, so I can just dig right in and read it right away. All right, so there you go. That is another mail haul. Fascinating stuff, and some stuff that's going right onto the list. So we have Fear Itself, the breakdown of a national survey about what Americans fear. We have The Unspoken Name, a big fantasy novel and a debut. Let's see here. The King's Justice, the new Maggie Hope novel. Enough said. The Death of Jesus by J.M. Coetzee, the third and final volume in this series of his. The Watergate Girl by Jill Wine-Banks, which is not about her time observing and commenting on the Trump crimes and impeachment, but rather about Nixon's crimes and Nixon's impeachment. Breath Like Water by Anna Jarzab, about a young swimmer named Ramos. One Fatal Flaw by Anne Perry, a new Victorian murder mystery. Dead Reckoning by Dick Lair. This is a new, very detailed, looks like, study of the assassination of Admiral Yamamoto. And Tucker by Emily March, which has a man and two beautiful dogs. So there you go. That's another mail haul for today. We're doing all right for today's mail. But I do want to know, if you feel like sounding off in the comments field, I would like to know what you think about these mail hauls. Do you use them? Are they enjoyable to you, entertaining to you, useful to you? I'd like to know all that. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, see what I can do about this lighting situation. But I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.